Hello and welcome to my garden. My name is Abby, and in this video I'm going to be documenting a whole spring season in my garden. In the last video, which was my winter season video, we left my garlic growing well, my hostas were coming up, and we still had flowers from the primroses and the violas, and I think my azaleas was just at the point of blooming. We also had my blueberries with some flowers, and all in all everything looked well. I had also sowed quite a few seeds, so yes, that's where we're going to start off from. Spring is a very busy season because there is a lot of planting, there's a lot of maintenance, and there's a lot of preventative work that is also completed. For example, if you mulch your garden, chances are you're going to get less weeding, which will mean less maintenance in the future. I started off the season by preparing my raised bed and my raised trough. I then planted some onion sets, some spring onions, some spinach. I sowed some peas, broad beans, and I also sowed some tomatoes, 4 different types of tomatoes, so 8 seeds in total. I had learned from my previous year where I ended up with something like 20 odd plants of the same tomato. So I'd learned my lesson, so this time I only sowed 8 seeds in total. Going outside, my border was coming to life. So this is how the garden was looking. As you can see, I had put up the arch, flat-topped arch arbor. I had put that up. I felt it was adding a bit of height, something I did not have previously. So that was looking well. In the border, starting from the left, my lavender was coming up, looking healthy. I had a wonderful surprise because I moved my peony back in autumn. I had moved it because I felt it was too close to the mystery plant. So I wanted to move it so that it would have a bit more space, but also I wanted it to have a bit more sun. I must have left a bit in the ground because when spring rolled around, I ended up with 2 lovely plants. There was the old peony, and then we had my mystery plant, and then the newer peony, and then towards the end, I had some strawberries. And in the furthest corner, I also had my blueberries, which I had moved away from the compost bin. On the right side, you can see the garlic. You can also see some blooms from the azaleas. They had started blooming as well. My broad beans were in the ground and they were marked by the bamboo canes. That's what you can possibly see in that first raised bed. And I had a lovely surprise because in my raised trough, I had some potatoes growing. I don't even know how they managed to stay in the ground because I did remove quite a bit of compost from the trough after I harvested the tomatoes. But hey, there we go. I had an unplanned crop growing and I was looking forward to eating the potatoes because they were extremely tasty from the last year. One thing I should mention is that spring 2024 was one of the wettest. It was the wettest I had experienced as because I only started gardening back in 2021. With there being a lot of rainy days, it meant there wasn't much watering. However, there was a bit of an issue when it comes to slugs and snails because they absolutely love the wet weather. So they were coming out in full force. The reason I mention this is because there are a few things that I planted. So, for example, I planted some kale. If you remember, I had sowed the kale seeds in March. So I planted some kale, some collards. They were all eaten, so I don't even have a picture of them. And it was quite sad. Well, for me, not for them. It was quite sad for me because I had taken the time to harden off the plants, and yeah, they were all eaten. I then carried on to do some more sowing. So I sowed some parsley, some basil, some sweet corn, more kale, more collards, sweet peas, some more sweet peas. Those were also eaten, just to say. So those were also eaten. So anyway, I did manage to plant some sweet peas into a container, and they were doing well. They seemed to be doing well. I also took the opportunity to plant out my dahlias. I only ended up planting out a small portion because I really didn't have the space. So I did plant my dahlias out, and I ended up selecting only about six of the ox eye daisies to put in the ground, and they were also doing well. In terms of early harvests, I had my spinach. It came out really quickly. So if you're ever thinking of growing something or sowing something that has a good quick turnover, I would definitely recommend spinach. And I would also recommend radish. As you can see here, it was coming out, I think it's all about 20 something days, and you'll already be harvesting. I was actually looking forward to harvesting my strawberries, but unfortunately that did not happen because, as I mentioned earlier, it was very wet. So we had an above average population of slugs and snails. So they were unfortunately eating each and every berry that was coming up. Not only that, I felt that the strawberries were actually providing an area for the slugs and snails to hide in. So I made the tough decision to take them out. Additionally, some of the strawberries appeared to have some a brown color to them, and I couldn't work out what was happening. So I just decided to pull them out because, yeah, I wasn't seeing any benefits in keeping them in place. By June, my primroses had stopped flowering, but my violas were coming on strong and they looked absolutely beautiful. My peonies as well, I ended up getting blooms from both plants, so that was really good to see. My roses, you remember that rose that took me a lot of time to plant. Simply stunning. And then I got my first bloom from the daisies, and that was also beautiful. So I must say, spring is a fabulous month when for blooms, for flowers. It is just beautiful. I was picking some of the flowers and putting them in the house. Going back to harvests, my garlic, if you remember my garlic, my garlic was growing strong. It was doing very well. The only thing of note is that when I bought my garlic, it said it was soft neck garlic. So the thing with soft neck garlic, it shouldn't have garlic scapes. So scapes are usually a feature of hard neck garlic, but my garlic had these scapes. Scapes are like a flower stem with a bud at the top. I'm not complaining, it's just that it's not usually a feature of soft neck garlic. Although apparently if the garlic is under stress, it can produce some scapes even if it's soft neck. So I think maybe mine was under stress. I didn't think it was because it was getting plenty of water and it was getting plenty of sun. But anyway, all that to say, did have those features, the scapes, and I ate them because you can eat the scapes and they're absolutely delicious. It is usually the guidance to say you wait for the yellow leaves and then you harvest. But luckily for me, I was watching one of the other YouTube channels. I put his name on the screen, and he happened to mention that when you have garlic, you should not wait for the bottom leaves to turn yellow. You can actually harvest it before. So I did, and just as well I did, because as you will see, some of it was already breaking up. The cloves were separating while it was in the ground. So I think if I'd left it longer, it wasn't really going to benefit my garlic. But oh, what a wonderful garlic harvest. So with garlic for storing, you need to hang it so that it dries. And then after it dries, you then cut off the stems and you can store your garlic. And I did that and I actually managed to store the garlic until the following year. And the seeds, the garlic cloves that I sowed for 2025, they were actually from my 2024 harvest. Speaking of more harvests, my blueberries were exhaling. They were producing quite a lot of blueberries and they were absolutely tasty. So Most of them, I just ate them in the garden, to be fair, because I didn't have the patience to take them inside. I would save some for others, obviously, but generally, I ate most of them in the garden. My Arabian Night dahlia, only one made it. So I planted two tubers, only one made it. And it was looking really good, actually. So it was more of a pom-pom. And it was looking well. Usually I have dinner plate dahlias, which means they're a bit flat and they're open. I think pollinators prefer those because they can get to the pollen easily. So yeah, I guess having a mixture of both is good because it provides the beauty and the functionality for the pollinators as well. But then, can you see what was happening? I made a rookie error. So what happened is, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I sowed some broad beans. I then sowed my daisies and I had my dahlias also in the same raised bed. The issue is daisies and the broad beans, they all attract aphids. So what ended up happening is because I had them together in the same raised bed, I think they were just it was just the perfect conditions for aphids to grow. And if you look closely, you'll see that at one point I even had an infestation. I did try to take off the top bits of the broad beans, which apparently attract a lot of aphids because they are soft and tasty and tender. But that didn't work. So, all in all, in terms of the broad beans, I did not end up getting any at all because I had to take them out because they were affecting the dahlias. They were just affecting everything, and that first raised bed was just looking poorly. So, yeah, so I took the broad beans out. The onions were not affected, they were doing well. And if you can look closely, you can see that I had a self-seeder in the form of a tomato. That's one thing I want to talk about next. Spring is a fabulous time to get on top of the weeding in particular. But what I would say is just be mindful when weeding because you might end up taking out some self-seeders. This year in particular, the potatoes, they self-seeded, the tomato self-seeded, and I also had some native plants that self-seeded. So when weeding, just be mindful, unless of course you don't want anything to grow where you didn't plant it, then obviously that's different. But if you would like some surprises here and there, just be mindful when weeding that you might be pulling out some beauties. One job I did not mention that I did in the spring was aerating and scarifying my lawn. So, as I have mentioned, I have clay soil. So, all the times I walk across my soil, my lawn in particular, my soil gets compacted. When it's winter time into spring, you can actually see quite a lot of moss in my lawn. I don't mind the moss at all. The only issue is when it gets warmer, the moss then dies and then it leaves a lot of gaps in the lawn. So what I usually do in April is I'll basically cut the lawn as low as I can cut it. Then I'll take my rake and then I'll rake away. It's such a hard job. I think it's the hardest job I have in my garden. And then I just rake to remove the dead lawn. And then after that, I'll aerate, which I normally just use my garden fork. I just go in and just make some holes and then I add some compost and then I also sprinkle some grass seed. This particular year it worked really well because it was raining quite a bit, so I didn't have to water my lawn because I don't generally water my lawn. So I'm just glad that it was raining quite a bit. So yeah, I did that to rejuvenate my lawn. That's a wrap on the spring season. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.